but it was like for a second, you feel me, I lost that. And I can know that. Like I look back and for a second, I definitely lost it. I would say last year was definitely one of the hardest years of my life. So every morning I wake up, I listen to a different sermon. And what I would say is what I learned from everything was don't allow negativity or anything.
Shedeur Sanders just says something most people never expected to hear from him. Not a highlight, not a stat line, a confession. He looked back at last year and admitted, in his own words, that for a second he lost it. Not his job, not his draft stock, himself. In a new short film called Turn Back, Shedeur pulls the curtain all the way back on what actually happened behind the scenes during the hardest stretch of his life, who was really there, who wasn't, and how he found his way back to who he is. This is that story, straight from him.
I don't see it. I'm on social media, I post, I get off. So I don't consume anything negative, because as soon as you start consuming all that poison, and that's a gateway, and I care about the core values, friends, family, football, and fun.
To understand why Shedeur even says the words, "I lost it," you have to understand what his mornings actually look like. He starts every single day the same way. He wakes up and listens to a different sermon. That's it. That's the routine that sets the tone for a guy who's been under more public pressure than almost any young player in the league. He said it plainly. What he learned from everything is don't allow negativity. Don't let anything exploit your mind. And he's not just saying it. He's living it. Shedeur says he barely touches social media. He posts, he gets off, and that's the whole interaction. No scrolling, no doom feed, no soaking in whatever the algorithm decides he should be angry about that day. In his words, once you start consuming that poison, that's a gateway. And he says he leaves no gateways open, no attachment to anything that could turn on him or turn against him. That mindset is exactly why the moment he admits he lost it hits so differently. This isn't a guy who's dramatic by nature. This is a guy who has built his entire daily life around control, around discipline, around keeping his mind clean. So when someone like that tells you last year cracked him for a second, you have to actually listen. He grounds his whole life in 4 things: friends, family, football, and fun. But even his version of fun isn't mindless. He calls it productive, something that's always expanding, always helping his mind grow. Whether that's making music or learning something new, he says these are the things that help him become who he actually is. And here's the part that matters for everything that comes next. He says this past year gave him a completely different perspective. Not a good year, not an easy year, a hard year that forced a new lens on everything. He started seeing the good things in life differently, appreciating them more because he had to go through something that stripped away the noise. That's the setup. A guy who protects his mind like it's a fortress, who found peace in routine and family and music, still hit a point where he says something got through. The rest of this story is about what that something was and how close it actually came to knocking him off center before he pulled himself back.
Helped me become me. I would say this past year gave me a different perspective about everything. And I would say a perspective that helps me find true joy and happiness in any situation. Because I look at the great things in life. I look at a lot of things differently. And I enjoy it more, honestly. So I would say this past year was probably the best thing because it helped me realize and bring different things out of myself. It helped me separate from people that, weren't truly for me. So I'm happy that the separation happened. I'm happy that everything happened how it did because I got another opportunity.
So if a guy this locked in can still say he lost it for a second, what actually got to him? Here's where it gets real.
Because most relationships aren't required to talk every day. For their own gain, you gotta understand the media. It's like, if I understand my name is an algorithm and everybody's content creators, how could I ever get mad at somebody making their money?
Shedeur doesn't dance around it. He says relationships are the most important thing to him, and everybody's going to have ups and downs, but what matters is who you can actually count on. And this is where the confession starts taking real shape. He says throughout everything, he learned what a real relationship looks like versus what isn't one. You don't have to talk every day to have a relationship, he says, because most relationships were never built on daily contact in the first place. But then he goes somewhere sharper. He talks about people who say they support you online, but would never actually reach out and do anything for you in real life. He says he understands now what it actually looks like when someone truly has your back throughout everything, not just when it's convenient or visible. And he says a lot of people talk about loyalty, but they don't actually live it. He doesn't respect that. He goes further still. He says he doesn't respect people who talk down on others for financial gain, for their own gain. And then he says something that shows just how self-aware he actually is about the media ecosystem he lives in. He compares it to the algorithm and says everybody is a content creator now, so how could he ever be mad at somebody making their money? He can't respect it, but he understands the game. This is the piece that explains the lost it moment. He admits that last year he took things more personally than he normally would. People who viewed him a certain way at some point in his life went quiet the moment things got hard. No calls, no help, just silence. And he says that's when his respect and his family's respect for a lot of people dropped. Not out of bitterness, he's clear about that, but because they understand what people have to do to feed their families. Still, it stung. Still, it registered. He makes one more point that shows the depth of how he thinks about this. He says he could never talk down on another person negatively, especially someone he doesn't even have a real relationship with, because when that person eventually rises to the top, they're always going to remember who did that to them. He says he will remember, and he believes they should expect the same. This section is the emotional core of the whole confession. It wasn't the football that got to him. It was the silence from people he thought he could count on, right when he needed them the most.
People would say they support you, but never really support. A lot of people would go online and show support, but personally would never reach out and do anything. So I understand what actually having your back look like throughout everything. A lot of people talk about it, but they don't really do it. And I don't really respect those people.
Here's the part nobody talks about when they cover Shedeur. It wasn't the pressure of the league that almost broke him. It was being alone in it.
Until you like isolate and like you by yourself and then you think about it. Whenever you I think about like how I feel in different moments. Then you don't need anything but God, you know what I'm saying? But
this is where Shedeur gets closest to actually explaining what losing it meant for him. He talks about how you don't really understand how much things are distractions, how much different things weigh on you until you isolate, until you're by yourself and you actually sit with it. He says he judges his mood constantly, asking himself why he feels motivated one day and doesn't the next. And isolating himself, stepping away, was what helped him actually understand himself. He describes it almost like an experiment. He says some people weigh on you more than you realize, and it's only once they're no longer around that you feel better. He calls it building a control group for yourself, figuring out the exact boxes you need to check to be in your most optimal state emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That's not casual language. That's a guy who went through something serious enough that he had to build a system just to find his way back to normal. And then comes the most honest stretch of the entire film. He admits that even after figuring all that out, he went back to leaning on external things, putting jewelry on, doing the things that made him feel like he did at his peak. But he catches himself in real time and says those things aren't intrinsic. They don't actually make you feel it. He says you can look back and think you felt good because of an object or a moment, but if you don't have that object anymore, your confidence goes with it. That's not real. That's not in your control. So he made a decision. He says he wanted to go back bare, human, and feel that power from within before he let himself wear any of it again. only once he found that intrinsic power did the external stuff become fun again instead of a crutch. This is the actual mechanics of losing it and finding it again. Not a breakdown, a stripping away, followed by a rebuild from the inside out. He also opens up about the environment itself, saying it was hard being somewhere new without anybody he could initially lean on. He says it felt weird, it felt off, going from having that person to lean on every single day to being on his own. That isolation is what led to the moment he admits he lost it, the moment that was new to him, the moment he had never really experienced before stepping into that situation.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. And like I said, I felt like that. But then I tried that. But I tried it doing things I went back to on the external side. You get what I'm saying? So it's like me, I throw some jewelry on, do all this stuff, you feel me, that I did when I felt at my peak, but it's just like at the end of the day, it's like those are external things and those don't really make you feel that.
This right here is why Shedeur is different. Most guys hide the moment they lose their footing. He's building content around it.
It was just like you going from a situation in a period to where you have that factor every day to everybody on their own. You get what I'm saying? And it's like it just felt weird, it felt off. That's attachments to social media, that's attachments to drugs, women, that's alcohol, that's attachment to things.
By the time Shedeur gets to the part where he directly admits it, for a second I definitely lost it. It doesn't feel like a shocking twist anymore. It feels like the natural conclusion of everything he's already told you. He says it was new, different from anything he'd been through before. And what made it worse was the isolation, being in an environment without anybody there initially, watching everyone else just observe from a distance instead of actually helping. He doesn't stay in that space, though. He immediately pivots to what pulled him out of it. He says he doesn't feel pressure anymore because he knows exactly who's on his side. He says with God, nothing can make you feel any type of way, and that feeling pressure at all is really just a sign of attachment to things that aren't serving you. Social media, drugs, women, alcohol, attachment in general. He says he doesn't hold on to any of it anymore, and that being in control of his mood every day is something he studies within himself constantly. That's when he lands on the phrase that basically explains his entire framework now. Great position, feel bad. Bad position, feel good. He says it all started to make sense once he understood that concept, and that his whole life has always had a balance built into it, whether he recognized it in the moment or not. He talks about how he spends his free time now, and it's not what people expect. He says he doesn't play video games, he makes music. He calls it mental therapy, a release, an escape. He says he could care less if anyone else likes it because it's for him. He says he likes going back and feeling the emotions from specific times in his life through music because it helps him recognize that same emotion the next time it shows up. He connects it directly to football too, saying the creativity off the field adds to how he plays on the field. Having options, having control, having creativity, that's when he plays his best. And that's part of why he says he's genuinely thankful for Andrew Berry and the coaching staff, because since day one, they've given him options in how they use him. This is the turn. The confession wasn't the end of the story. It was the setup for how he rebuilt.
Great position, feel bad. Bad position, feel good. It all started to make sense. I would say my whole life I always had a balance. And everybody chooses to spend their free time differently. Me, I don't play the game. I like making music.
So next time you see Shedeur looking locked in on Sundays, remember, this is the guy who admitted he almost lost that and rebuilt it himself.
Don't let anything or anybody take it away from you. It's not about flesh, it's about how you feel.
Let's put the whole picture together. Shedeur Sanders, a guy who protects his mind daily through routine, faith, and distance from negativity, still hit a point last year where the isolation, the silence from people he trusted, and the weight of a completely new environment got to him. He admits it plainly. For a second, he lost it. But he doesn't stop there. He explains exactly how he found his way back. isolating on purpose to understand himself, realizing which people and which things were actually weighing him down, catching himself leaning on external validation and choosing to strip it away until his confidence came from within instead. Landing on a mental framework, great position feels bad, bad position feels good, that lets him stay even no matter what's happening around him, and leaning into music as an actual outlet instead of bottling everything up. He calls last year one of the hardest of his life. He also calls it the reason he has a different perspective now, one he says is going to make him one of the greatest to ever do it. That's not a small claim, but after hearing exactly what he walked through to get there, it hits different. You gotta stand on 10 throughout everything. So here's the real story behind Shedeur Sanders' hardest year. It wasn't the draft slide, it wasn't the doubters. It was isolation, silence from people he trusted, and a moment he says was completely new to him, one where he admits he lost it for a second. And instead of hiding that, he's putting it in a short film for the world to hear in his own words. He says the perspective from that year is going to make him legendary. He says he's already stamped it. So, here's the question. Do you think Shedeur's confession makes him more relatable as a competitor? Or do you think a guy who says he lost it for a second still has something to prove before this season even starts? Drop your answer below. Smash like and subscribe.